Text is one of the primary ways of placing notes inside of a Revit project. In this example, what we would like to do is we would like to place some notes sort of in this area of our drawing. This is a nice big blown up view, and quite frankly, it has more information than what we would want to have inside of our detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to move into our callout view, and we can see the little callout symbol right here. Now, if we just click inside of the view, zoom down, and we have a couple of different options. The way that I'm going to go is I'm going to double click here on this little circular shape, and it's going to take us directly to the callout view. If you have any problems with doing that, I'll also point out that underneath the project browser over here on the left-hand side, you could double click on callout of elevation 1-A. That's what this is currently named, and that will take you to the same view. So I'm going to move over here, just double click here on the little circular shape, and take us to our callout view. Now, the callout view right now has a scale of 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. And it's not necessarily a bad scale, but in this case, I just want it to be a scale that happens to be a little bit smaller. In this case, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So we can come down here to the scale, come up here, and then change this to be 1/8 inch equals a foot. And we can see when we do that how all the text looks bigger. Now, the reality of it is all the text is actually the same size as far as if it was going to print on a sheet. It's everything else that just looks a little bit smaller. What we want to do now is we're going to add, in this case, 3 different notes. One note is going to call out this concrete slab up here on top. Next note is going to be down here, and we're going to be calling out what this structure happens to be. Then the third note we're going to add is going to be a note relating to this concrete wall, and that's what we're looking at here, and it's beyond. It's sort of in the distance, and we're going to want to add a note there that describes this concrete wall isn't right in front of our face, it's back a little ways. Let's go ahead and get started. Up here at the top of the screen, we don't want to be in the Structure tab. Anything related to text or dimensions, or just think of anything that might have letters in it or numbers in it, almost always is underneath the Annotate tab. So go to Annotate. Here we can see our different commands, including those dimensions and the tags that you can place in order to be able to label our columns. But the thing that we're concerned about here is going to be our text. So come over here to where the big A is at and go ahead and select on that. Once you've done that, we have 2 different areas where most of our text properties are going to be located at. The first area is over here on the left-hand side. And if we click here where it has text 3/32 Arial, we can see 3 different text sizes that are currently available to us in our project. Now, in this example, the 3/32 Arial is going to be what we use, but I will point out that if you ever wanted to be able to make a modification to that to have your own custom text size, you can do that by coming over here to Edit Type, selecting on Edit Type, and then picking what size you want the font to be. Now, this isn't just what size is it going to be in this view, it's what size is it going to print at. So in this case, it's going to be 3/32. So anytime we would go and hit print and send this to a printer, it's always going to be 3/32, assume that we print the full size. The font shows up here as well. This is an Arial font. And if we would click here, we can see a list of all the standard out-of-the-box Windows fonts that would be available. As a result of that, you could pick whatever font or whatever text size you'd want whenever you're placing your notes. So we'll go ahead and click on OK. We'll just accept the defaults to this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we'll take a look at the different commands that we have up here on the ribbon. The first thing that I care about are these 4 boxes right here. This first one, it just has the letter A in it. What this indicates is that it's going to place text without an arrow associated with it. An arrow is also considered a leader, so you might hear me call it that every once in a while. Over here, this is what's called a 1 segment. And as you can see in the preview, it just does 1 line with an arrow at the end. The one that we'll be using is going to be the 2 segment leader, and it's going to have 1 little line and then a second line pointing at the piece of text. And the third option that we have is the curved one, and it gives you sort of a more handwritten kind of looking leader, and it has more of an arc or a curve associated with it, as opposed to the straight lines the other 2 had. In this example, once again, we're going to come up here and we're just going to select on 2 segments. Move up here toward the top of the screen. And we're going to move our mouse down here, and we're going to kind of point right in this location. Now click right in this area. It's not going to snap to it. Just click and then move your mouse up. Click once you get up here, just sort of outside of this box that shows up around the view. Now move over to the right and click again. So what we did is we just placed that leader that's associated with the text. It's click once for where you want the arrow to be at, click again for where you want that elbow to show up at, and then move across and click for where you want your text placement to be at. In this example, we're going to want this to be a 5-inch thick concrete slab. So that's what I'm going to type in. 5-inch concrete slab. Whenever you get done typing, just click somewhere out in space, and it'll automatically put that text with that proper size font that was picked off of the list over here inside of your project. And you can hit escape a couple of times in order to be able to get out of that part of the command. Now let's go ahead and place another piece of text down here that's going to be calling out what this particular beam happens to be, or what this particular column actually happens to be. So we'll come back up here again. We'll select on text. Now, just so that you can see it, I'm going to go ahead and just choose this one that says no leader. Usually I would continue to use the 2 segment, but just so we can try it, we're going to do the no leader one. Now, if you're going to place one with no leader, there's really 2 different ways you can go about doing it. You can either just click and then start typing, or you can draw what's called a text box, which is click, hold the mouse button down, and then do something that looks like this. It looks like a box. It's sort of like if you're going to be selecting a group of objects. And what that will do is it'll try to keep all the text inside of the box. I don't really care which way that you go. In this case, this is only going to be one little line of text, so it's not going to wrap around. But in our next text example, we'll see it where it's going to be long enough to wrap around, and this text box will actually affect what it is that we type in. So I'm just going to go ahead and let go of my mouse button somewhere over here and type in WWF 18 by 337. Because that happens to be the size of this steel member that's over here. Now we can go ahead and just click out into space somewhere, and that places it. If we want to be able to move this around after the fact, all we have to do is hit escape a couple of times, and then move up here, click on the arrow, and you can see we can just move this around and kind of place it where we need to place it. Now if we want to be able to add an arrow to this so that we can point to this area, that's what these buttons up here now allow us to do. So we can click the little plus sign next to whichever shape that we want to be able to create. In this case, we can see that there's a straight leader option, there's an arc option. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and just pick on this straight leader option that shows up here. See how this leader comes straight out like this? And we can click on this little dot and move this into place. Click on this dot, move it straight up. And now we have the leader pointing at the right object. One more piece of text we want to do, and it's going to be down here in the box. And we're going to come back up here to text, select on text. We're going to do this concrete wall, and it's going to be called beyond. So say concrete wall and then the word beyond. Now I'm going to once again just do that box, if you will, kind of leader. So we're going to come in here with the text without the leader associated with it. I'm going to click once, do a box just around this area, and then let go. Now I'm going to type in concrete wall and I'm going to do the word beyond. You'll notice beyond was going to go over where this box was at, so it automatically wrapped it down to the level down below, or the line down below. So pretty much all this leaves us to do is add a couple more arrows and we'll be done placing this text. So we'll just do it the same way that we did this up here. Select on the piece of text, tell it that we want to be able to add a leader to it. In fact, in this case, I actually want to be able to add 2 leaders to it. So I'm going to pick the one on the right-hand side here. And then we're going to click on this arrow, kind of drag it down. You can see that I can drag on this little dot here and pull it up to whichever location I want it to be at. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And by having the arrows in this arrangement, it's sort of indicating that whether it's up or down or wherever it is, anywhere along this concrete wall is beyond and sort of in the background. When we're using text, we can take care of a lot of the annotation inside of our projects. And that's all done by coming up and selecting text off of the ribbon and then using the appropriate annotation tools.